Hey, good afternoon. It's Valerie Ling. I'm parked, I'm safe, I'm stopped, I'm hands-free, so don't worry. I just wanted to come live to you today because I've had some time to really reflect on some stuff that's really been bothering me, and so I wanted to talk to you about it so that I'm hoping that you might listen to this and take notice of this if this is you. So one of the things I pick up in my work with pastoral carers, teachers, doctors, nurses, vets, is that we're not really very good at identifying what are the psychological critical incidences in our work which really impact on us and have a wear and tear effect on us. Most times when you think about a critical incident, we can actually think about, it's easy for us to recall physical issues or safety issues. Someone has a significant accident, or there is a fire, or there's a critical event where we think, okay, like that's pretty big. This doesn't happen ordinarily. There's a risk to safety. Perhaps there's a little bit of threat even to life. And so it is a critical incident. And from there, that usually kickstarts some kind of policy process in your organization. Hopefully you should have that in your organization in terms of who do we report this to. Was anybody exposed to the critical event or physical threat or a security breach that actually needs to be debriefed to make sure that they're okay? And then that whole process kickstarts. But very few individuals and probably even organizations have a similar policy to be able to identify and kickstart a critical incident debrief when it comes to psychological safety. Right? So psychological safety, things like being emotionally or verbally abused by a customer, or witnessing death, or walking away from a particular interaction where you actually felt personally attacked or under some kind of psychological threat. Somehow we just think that is, oh, well, that's normal. I'll just go home now and I should be fine. I want you to think, though, in terms of the regular conversations that we would have in our everyday world and in our everyday life. You don't experience that kind of physical vulnerability on an everyday basis. And so it is a critical incident and it needs to be debriefed. A paper that I read some time ago, for example, for teachers, a teacher just needs to have one incident in the classroom where they felt like they were under threat for all kinds of reasons. It could be that it was a particularly boisterous class, or it could be a particular student had a meltdown and chairs were thrown, not even being physically hurt themselves, but feeling overwhelmed by a classroom dynamic where they did not feel in control, and the projection for that is that there could be some kind of breach of safety, or even their own personal safety would be under threat. That is a critical incident. And that article was saying that teachers who return to the classroom after such an incident usually are better resourced and more able to return to a classroom when they've had someone that they've identified that they can debrief the situation with, an identified person who's safe, who's safe, who is a named person on their list that they can go to and just say, hey, this actually happened to me. And that person reflects that back and asks them, what do you do? What did you say? How are you feeling now? So one, critical incident debrief. And second, after that, being able to then intentionally use strategies so that they're aware that whenever that kind of like a hiccup or what we call a hypervigilant reaction comes up. So a teacher, for example, walking past the classroom or even out in their everyday life, seeing a group of students might start to feel a bit anxious. That is possibly a trauma reaction from what has actually happened in the classroom. And so the second thing is being able to kickstart early in the piece some intentional strategies that you're able to use to bring that anxiety down. Those two things, when they're in, leads to a higher incidence of return to the classroom. When you don't have those things, there's a higher incident of avoidance. And then what happens with avoidance is it just builds. You start to question yourself. Maybe I'm not competent. Maybe I'm not good enough for the job. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. This is always going to happen. I think I need to change jobs. This is not the right path for me. So critical incident debrief, even for psychological safety, not even, definitely for psychological safety, is really, really important. And one of the things that I see as a weakness in the caring professions is we don't have a list to know what is a psychological critical incident? What is it? And so when we sit down to actually think, do I talk to someone about this or not? We feel silly because it's not on the list. It's not an earthquake. It's not a natural disaster. There was no security breach. It was just someone shouting at me. Just someone shouting at me. Well, it doesn't happen every day. And when it does, it really does impact us. So will you do me a favor? If this has resonated with you at all, and you've been in a situation like this, would you, one, identify someone who's safe for you to talk to and have a chat about it? Secondly, if that doesn't help at all, would you just book in with a professional even for one session? Because in my line of work, I've just seen compacting critical incidences that have gone on for 5, 10, 15 years, and we've got to debrief all of them because stuff just sits. And finally, if you're at the top of the leadership chain and you are the person that's making the policies and your organization doesn't have a critical incident debrief policy, could you please put one in place? I'll catch you later.